I've done my best to address my issue with my hair. Don't come at me, I've already addressed this. Yeah. So, I'm not gonna intro this, that's stupid. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Like, I have shot every video in this stupid little video diary. In 4K quality at 60 frames per second. And currently I'm trying to upload my first one. And it's taking forever. Probably because of the fact that I'm in the middle of nowhere in terms of Wi-Fi. Like, it is populated city, populated area. But as far as data goes, there's not a lot to go around. And I guess the home Wi-Fi network isn't enough. So, yeah. So, I guess at the time of recording this video, my first video is 2/3 of the way uploaded, and it's pissing me off. But it is a product of the decisions that I have made, so there's really no one to blame but me. Anyway, last time I promised to tell a story. I'm actually kind of surprised I remember that at all. And really, I mean, this isn't the place for storytelling so much, because it's pretty much just an archive of the things that I'm thinking, and, you know, just me saying stuff, a lot of stuff, but it's my thoughts and, like, my feelings, I guess. And so it's kind of strange to be telling a story from my past in this context. But at the same time, like I said I would. Also, my mom has made me tell this story so many times, and it does kind of lead into a actual thought, like an actual feeling. So there's that. Segue, that was the word I was looking for. It segues into, you know, my actual thoughts and feelings. So, yeah. Believe it was freshman year. I was homeschooled, as I've previously mentioned. And because of my homeschooling, my mother decided to co-found a nonprofit organization that's a homeschool co-op, and they offer some classes because of the fact that she's very good friends with somebody who has spent a lot of time getting homeschool kids into college. And I mean, I got into college, so so long as I have enough scholarship money, I should be good to go. So I mean, it's successful, it works. Anyway, yeah, so it was the second year of the homeschool co-op's existence, and it was during 2020. So we ended up needing to be on Zoom for the classes, which second year of the homeschool co-op, it wasn't ideal, but, you know, we did the best we could. Anyway, a lot of the people in my homeschool co-op were really into role-playing games, D&D, etc. I actually learned D&D from one of the teachers of the class that I'm about to talk about. He was the first one to ever teach me D&D. But yeah, so because this was a known quantity, my mother thought that it would be a good idea if a couple of the teachers were to draft up a rules system and basically make our government and economics class a role-playing game. Of course, it was significantly less game than it was roleplay, but it was meant to teach us, you know, some of the inner workings obviously, we also kind of alongside the class learned about the existing systems in real life so that we could inform the decisions we made about our system that we wanted. So the first part of the class was writing the Constitution for our in-game country, and that was pretty cool. That was all right, but the issue with that was that it was like boring, because for the most part we couldn't vary too much off of reality. We couldn't do like crazy things, so we pretty much just kind of built a very similar constitution, and that was that. But then after that, we actually got to go into the good stuff, where we were actually in our different houses of Congress. We started off in our first House of Congress that we had titled something other than House of Representatives, but it was very similar. We did kind of make it a different system to where it was really one house would write the bills, and then the Senate would like ratify. There wasn't specific bills for each house to write, and then they sent them to each other. We just had a more and I guess that is technically like a less effective system. But to be honest, for a class of like 10 people, like it wasn't a big deal. We just kind of, it was a more streamlined approach for us because we just started in the house where we wrote the bills and passed it through that house, and then we went to the house where we had to basically two-factor authentic two-factor authentication is what it's called. So two-factor authentify, yeah, I guess. Damn, I'm stupid as hell. Anyway, we had to confirm that that was what we wanted to do. And so that made it significantly easier than trying to write separate bills in separate houses. But basically, in the rule set, there was a part of the rules, because it was a brand new rule system being given to just children. Obviously, we were going to find loopholes, and one of the loopholes was that my class, which was the party whip, basically gave me a pretty overpowered class ability where I could essentially affect 50% of my party's votes, and I was also good friends with the other party whip, and so he also got 50% of their party votes. And then I also had like players voting for my bill, so I got my bills passed through that with no resistance. God, I'm really out of it today. But yeah, with zero resistance, I got my bills passed through. But what were these bills? These bills, you might be able to hear some talking in the background. That's some neighbors in their yard doing stuff. I don't even know. Probably talking. I don't know. Anyway, regardless. So yeah, basically, once we got to the house, we had these standard things to worry about in world problems. There were different issues. There was this whole war thing going on, and it was like blah 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 blah. But everybody else was kind of just doing things that were already predetermined. They were on their predetermined path. They wrote bills about the things that were being told to them, and not writing bills about things that didn't really correlate. And I guess that kind of makes sense. You only want to, like, write bills about the pertinent issues. But the fact of the matter is that people were only told a couple of issues as pertinent issues, and then really the rest of it was just, do whatever. But nobody else did whatever. So I was thinking to myself, and, I was like, okay. And I wrote some bills. The first bill I wrote, it was just a random thought. It popped into my head. I have never, before that moment in my life, ever had any correlation with weasels. But in that moment, I was like, what if I just wrote a bill where it gave our citizens the power to domesticate wild weasels, as there's definitely an overpopulation issue with weasels. And instead of killing them, if we domesticate them, that would be a more effective way of managing the problem, because of the fact that fucking bullshit, I don't know. I came up with good justifications at the time, and I can't really remember them anymore. Although I'm sure I could find them if I pulled up my old bills. But yeah, that's what I did. I said, yep, citizens, if they trap a weasel, are free to keep them as pets and domesticate them as they see fit. And, this kills two birds with one stone, because our people get cute pets, and they, don't have to deal with the overcrowding or, like, pest control or anything like that. I was like, cool. And I did what nobody had done before me, except for one of the teachers. Nobody before me in the class had released press releases. We'd been getting press releases from the teachers about the things that were going on in the world, and the things that were going on in, like, our government, but no student had issued a press release before I started sending press releases. And I sent press releases by the dozens. As soon as I found out that that was a thing I could do, I kept doing it. And so, in an effort to put a stop to my antics, in the middle of one roleplay session, I was advocating for my bill, and one of the teachers had taken on the role of a salty old war general. And he said, what the fuck? And obviously, none of the swearing was actually in it. This is a complete paraphrase. This is a high school class. So this isn't exactly what was said. But he essentially said, what the fuck does this have to do with the war? We're at war, soldier. We have to focus on war things. And if we don't focus on war things, then we're all going to die. And I was like, okay, I can focus on war things. And so the second bill I wrote was called Weasel Corps. Corps spelled CORPS, as in Marine Corps type thing. And yep, it's exactly what it sounds like. I wrote a bill that was the creation of an entire new branch of the military called the Weasel Corps, where weasels would collaborate, because it is still set in, like, a D&D type world. Weasels would collaborate with druids to infiltrate enemy lines and cause disturbances in the enemy lines to effectively divide and conquer our enemies. And that's kind of when people started losing it, because before I was just kind of being, like, random and annoying and kind of funny. But now I've essentially hijacked the class, because, as I said, when promising to tell this story, half of the class hated my guts, and the other half of the class was losing their shit. I'm trying not to show my feet on camera while simultaneously getting out of that position, because it was very uncomfortable. Anyway, yeah. It was an incredibly fun time. And yeah, because of the fact that I was a party whip and the other party whip fully supported my decisions and we weren't really beholden to our parties in any form or fashion. Yep, both of those bills passed through the house that I designed them in. They did not make it through the Senate because I no longer had the power I had, because that had kind of gotten patched because I abused it. And I didn't have enough support because the teachers also wanted to stop the bills from passing. But that's not where that story ends, because I did not just take this defeat. I kind of did. But once we had gotten out of our congressional portion of the class, we moved on to the executive branch. And in the executive branch, we got to request what branches we were put in charge of. We got to give 2 options. And I initially wanted my 2 options to be defense and defense because I wanted to use my executive power to enact a special operations division that used weasels. And that wasn't allowed, not the weasels thing, but my being head of defense was not allowed, unfortunately. And because of that, I was put as my second option the head of the Treasury Department, where I essentially founded a federal stock market. It was interesting, but I also said that weasels could take part in it, even though they really, intellectually can't. I just thought it'd be funny. It pissed them off. It was really funny. But something that they had not accounted for was that the only other person who wanted to be the head of the Department of Defense was somebody who had been backing me the entire time. So I sent him pretty specific instructions as to what to do, and he did it. And so the Weasel Corps may not have gone through. And neither did the bill to domesticate wild weasels, which is really sad. They needed a home. But the Special Ops Division that employed a crew of highly skilled weasels ended up not only ending the war, but winning the war. Because it was based off of dice rolls, and my friend was extremely lucky and rolled even a couple of natural 20s. And yeah, the Weasel Special Operations Division not only took down the enemy headquarters, but they assassinated their leader. I won in the end, and there was nothing they could have done to stop me. It was a beautiful time. A time in my life when, honestly, I just did random shit, and for no other reason than because it's funny. It was great. It was amazing. And none of the class actually hated me. They just hated the fact that I hijacked the class. And my mom makes me tell that story, every once in a while when somebody new will learn of my exploits and need to understand the context. But that brings me to my real thoughts and opinions and feelings, which is that I ended up kind of inadvertently pigeonholing myself with that one. Because now when certain people see me and think of me, they think of weasels. And don't get me wrong, I still love weasels. People thought weasels were my favorite animal for a long time, and at the time when I actually did the weasel thing, my favorite animals were penguins. Now I'm not even sure what my favorite animal would be. Weasels are adorable. I also really like pangolins. But the point is, that because of doing that, I kind of, for a very long time, made my entire identity around weasels. I made usernames, including the word weasel. I made so many things about weasels, to the point where weasels can't even be brought up without me being thought of. And don't get me wrong, I like it. I mean, it's not a part of my past I'm ashamed of. If anything, it's a part of my past that I'm proud of. But it's just something that, like, it became specifically what I was all about, you know? It went from being something funny that I did, something that I'm proud of, to being, like, everything I did. People called me, like, Weasel Boy, which, again, I've never taken as an insult. It's not a bad thing. It's just, you know, it's people's view of me. It's what encapsulates the way people think of me. And it's a weird feeling, you know? Because in my mind, that's not really how I see myself. It's not what expresses me. But it used to be, like, everything. If anything, that moment in time really just shows... Hold on, I'm about to do an expert foot not seeing maneuver. I really hope my feet aren't in frame, because then all of that will have been for naught. And I might have to do what I said last time that I would never do, and edit one of my videos to blur out my feet. I might just not give a shit. Anyway. No. So, I think what the issue is that I try to be so unique. I am proud of my idiosyncrasies. Sometimes I find it fun when people don't understand me, which, as I've said so many times, is not always the case. And I've talked for long enough about how I need somebody to understand me, but it's been fun to do. It's been great. It's been nice when, like, I'm viewed as a complex individual, one that's difficult to understand. So maybe I just don't like that being the way people see me, because I want to be so much more. But honestly, there's not a lot of point to being, like, more. People are often defined by, like, a moment in their life. But I don't know. I enjoyed doing that because it was just so fun, and it was chaotic, and I broke a lot of people's brains. They had no idea why I was doing this, or what could have possibly possessed me. But it was fun. That's what I like doing. That was really the essence of it. And I still do that. Of course, it's not always as legendary as hijacking your entire class, but, yeah. I'm not really legendary, though. So, I guess it's kind of fitting. Every loser gets that one moment. Of course, I'll always have to live with that. I mean, just because I kind of want to switch gears, I want a different brand, that doesn't mean that it's not something I did. And it doesn't mean that I regret that either, because I don't. And I don't think I'll ever regret that. I don't know. I feel like it's really common for people to want to rebrand themselves. I feel like it happens to some people more often than others. But I feel like everyone at some point just has that urge to change how everyone feels about them. Yeah. So that's that story. Yeah. That's not the end of this entry, mainly because of the fact that that would be, like, making this entire entry about that. I don't want to do that. So let's see. I was thinking about, like, 10,000 other things that I can say during this. And yet, for some reason, I'm not thinking of them at the moment. So we're just going to sit here while I try to think of literally one of the many, many things, and not literally thousands, but literally one of the many things that I was thinking about saying during this one. I'm not going to jump in the water. I pondered it. I even pondered doing that, like, you know, that subtle foreshadowing thing where, like, towards the beginning of the video, like, I would play a clip of me right above the water. And then just, like, every so often, I would, you know, call back to that. Call back to the mention of not jumping in the water. And then I would cut to another closer, like, shot of me almost hitting the water. And then, of course, obviously end the video with me hitting the water. Maybe to fucking what's her face's Enya's song, the one that's like I think it's something about time. Who can say where the road leads? Only time. That. It would have been funny. Well, honestly, so obviously, like, I can jump in water. I'm not afraid of water. But it's being pretty consistently, like, 30 degrees outside where I, you know, where I currently am. And yeah, that's nighttime temperatures. Like, it's probably, I would say it's probably 50 out here at least. Like, it's pretty comfortable now. That water is definitely freezing. And, like, yeah, I could take it. Honestly, I'm just too lazy. I don't have a swimsuit with me. I don't want to walk to go get, like, anything. And even, like, I would have to go walk and get a towel. I would have to fucking, you know, I would probably strip down to my underwear. I'm pretty visible out here, so I'm not gonna go skinny dipping. Also, shit, then the video would have my bare ass in it. Then I definitely can't do that. It's just, no, I'm not gonna do that, because I can't be bothered. I really just can't. So, yeah. What was I gonna say? Man, like, really the only point of this is to, like, archive my thoughts. And so, really, it's not meant to have an audience, but I really feel bad for anyone who tries to watch these. Because they're going to be so, like, just long. There's going to be a lot of pauses. It's not going to be a particularly interesting sight. It's just me talking a lot. Yapping really is a favorite pastime of mine, but like, there's no good reason that anybody would find enjoyment in this. Although I suppose that I could, like, find myself, like, putting a video like this in a sleep playlist where someone just talks. Because then the intermittent pausing wouldn't, like, annoy me. It wouldn't bother me. A lot of people want just, like, fast-paced content. So, I'd be surprised if anybody tunes in at all. Although I am... I'm not a content creator, but I'm a person who has, like, 0 subscribers, so the odds that I get any views whatsoever, very low. But again, if this was to be a YouTuber, then I would come up with ideas for content instead of just video archiving my thoughts. Damn. How are all my thoughts gone? Fuck. It's really leaving lines on my hands. Everybody likes Marvel Rivals, so me saying that I like Marvel Rivals right now is like, yeah, duh. Like, it's like currently the biggest game out there. Like, biggest multiplayer game out there, I'm sure. Okay, I'll yap about Marvel Rivals for a second. I kind of just play Phil when I play Marvel Rivals, because I'm so fucking sick of DPS mains. They are incapable of locking anything other than a DPS. Like, literally, I tried to play a game, and somebody started out as a Vanguard, and I was playing Luna Snow because I was still filling, but at least we had a tank. So we had a couple of healers and a tank. But then the tank switched to DPS, and I was like, dude, somebody's gotta fucking take some damage. And they're like, well, I can't. Well, I can't play a tank. I can't play a tank. It's like, it just fucking, I despise them so much. Because it's like, really, you can't learn tank. You can't even be bothered to try and learn a single tank. You want to get on there with your garbage ass on some, like, 2 and 30 shit with the KD, talking to me about, I can't play tank. Shut your fucking mouth. So yeah, I hopped on multiple tanks. I had to cycle through a couple tanks. We ended up losing, I think. I think we ended up losing. But it's mind-boggling to me how everyone in this game is so unversatile. Like, it's actually terrible. I just need to play with a group of friends. Like, I need a group of friends that I can play with pretty consistently, that I know who's got what skill level, that I know that, like, some of us can be versatile, because most of my gameplay is tanks or healers. I don't fucking play DPS, like, ever. And if I play DPS, it's really only to, like, be hitting them quests and achievements. And, like, I feel bad for playing DPS when I do, because I literally, like, I despise DPS players with my whole chest. That's, like, a really common feeling. It's a common sentiment online, I'm very sure. But, like, seriously, how hard is it to just pick up one new skill? One new skill could save so many lives in Marvel Rivals. Or maybe it could save your life, because I'm going to crawl through the internet and fucking murder you. I think I'm going to end it there. I really don't have any other thoughts.